we are going to talk about why wrote a tool to help people use a single group. First thing we're going to talk about is, what the protected users group is, why it's useful. Then we're going to talk about why we don't see anybody using it. So of the 200 plus environments that I've seen while working at Trimark, less than 5% of those environments actually use the protected users group fully. We'll discuss why that is. Then we're going to give you a how-to that I'm just going to speed run through if you wanted to enable the protected users group and start using it, and if you wanted to do all the work manually. And then I'm going to show you PowerPug and how much time and effort that's really going to alleviate from your attempts to use this thing. So, who am I real quick? Husband, dad, recovery systems administrator. As previously mentioned, I do work at Trimark. I lead the ADSA service, and then I write tools for fun. And then on Fridays, 2 to 3 Eastern time, I co-host the Trimark Twitch Happy Hour, where we have some fun guests on and have some Trimark coworkers get on there and wasting time on a Friday. It's a great way to end a week. So, all right, let's get into this. So, like I said, a tool to help people use a single group? Yes. And here's why. So, first off, the protected user group. What is it? It is a Active Directory group. It looks like any other security group. You can add users to it. You can remove users from it, etc. It can be nested in other groups, blah, blah, blah. But it's special in that if you add a user to it, that user gets a ton of protections on their user account. Some of those are device level protections, and some of those are domain controller level protections. So it does require in an environment to have, if you want to get the host level protections, which we'll discuss which protections apply to which things in a second here. You do need a 2012 R2 primary domain controller emulator. And if you want full protection, so that's everything protected in the environment, that's going to be a 2012 R2 domain functional level. Its protections that are provided are not configurable. And that right there is why people have had trouble actually using the protected users group. You can't have workarounds to get past a lot of the protections that are involved. So what exactly are those protections? Well, first off, it's going to enforce your strong authentication. So Active Directory supports a ton of authentication methods, and most of them suck. Thankfully, in 2008, the server 2008 period, we started using Kerberos with strong authentication, specifically AES 128 and AES 256 encryption. But there are still many environments where we see older forms of authentication. NTLM v1, which Jeff McJunkin was talking about earlier, about how terribly broken that is. Occasionally we see LAN manager authentication happening. Terrible. What the protected users group does is basically eliminates all NTLM authentication and also eliminates the weaker forms of Kerberos. So that would be Kerberos encryption using DES and RC4. Second, the protected users group, when a user is added to this group, it can no longer be impersonated via Kerberos delegation. So delegation is impersonation, right? It allows a web server to work on your behalf to contact a SQL server. Well, do you really want that web server to be impersonating your most sensitive users, your AD admins? I don't. In Windows, cache credentials are everywhere, just littered all about. Red teamers are finding them left and right. Unhired red teamers are finding them left and right. Add a user to the protected users group, those cache credentials are gone. And adding a user to the protected users group really shortens the session length that they are able to have. By default, Kerberos TGTs are auto-renewed every 10 hours and then max out at 7 days. Adding a user to the protected users group shortens that session length to 4 hours and requires a manual re-authentication at that time. There is no automatic renewal. So, these protections seem pretty great, but why isn't it more popular? In the environments that I've seen, over 200 now at this point working for Trimark, less than 10% have any of their AD admins actually added to the protected users group, and less than 5% actually add all of their AD admins to the group. And the reasons that we have been told to us, it's not popular because it's breaking administration behaviors. But really, those administration behaviors are actually bad habits that are incredibly risky. So the protected users group breaks those, and people don't like having their workflow broken. Ask me, I know. I ran into problems when I first tried using the protected users group at my old job. So specifically, these are the most common complaints that I've got, and I've reached out on LinkedIn, did some polls and stuff to confirm all of this, but like legacy applications. And when I say legacy, I don't necessarily mean that they're not being actually updated, but they just have not been brought up to using strong forms of Kerberos authentication. vSphere. You can use Kerberos, but you can't use Kerberos with AES. Javlik, I was told, doesn't work well. Entra ID seamless single sign-on account. Number one, you probably shouldn't be using that anyway. But number two, when you do need to roll the password for that account, your user cannot be a member of the protected users group. Kind of weird for Microsoft to make you lower your security to work properly. Using IP addresses. So because Kerberos is enforced for any member of the protected users group, you generally can't connect to things via IP address, right? Kerberos requires a name in order to properly resolve things. You can do it by IP, but it requires additional configuration that nobody does. So things break. And in that case, sorry to go back to that, using the IP addresses, right? If Kerberos can't work, it drops back to NTLM authentication, weak, broken, etc. Remote desktop issues. There are still plenty of environments where there are old systems that do not support network level authentication. You got to use that with if you're a member of the protected users group. Additionally, there is no real support for non-Windows devices. So I'm a Mac user. I'm presenting to you from a Mac as we speak. And this really hurts my soul because I can't use RDP with a protected user to connect to a Windows machine. Marc-Andre Moreau has actually written a blog about how to make it work, but it does require fiddling with files and just does not seem straightforward. So also, AD admins being delegated. Again, do you want your AD admins being impersonated ever? I don't think so. And lastly, we regularly see in my work at Trimark, AD admin groups that have computers and or service accounts added as members of the account of those AD admin groups. And those accounts just do not work well with the protected users group due to the Kerberos ticket lifetime limitations. So yeah, that was probably my biggest impact when I first started using the protected users group in my last gig. Was why am I having to like re-authenticate every 4 hours? It was annoying. So we, as part of Trimark, we find that you're not using your protected user group. We're going to tell you need to do that. And almost every time we get pushback and say, we tried, right? We tried, it broke this, it broke this, it broke this. So earlier, actually almost 2 years ago now, I first started coming up with a methodology for detecting what's going to break beforehand. So I'm going to run through that methodology really quick and show you what all the things you need to check in your environment before you can really start utilizing the protected users group safely without breaking your existing workflows. So all of this is pretty code heavy. I am going to blow right through this. It's all up on my GitHub. You can find it there. But I just want to show you like all the things you need to check. First of all, you need to check the forest functional level. As in, if you have a 2012 R2 forest functional level or higher, cool, you're good. You can skip the next few slides. Shockingly, we're still finding many environments that are not up to the latest forest functional level. If you don't have your forest functional level up to the right level, you can still get a lot of the benefits of the protected users group by using domain functional levels, specifically 2012 R2 or higher, as mentioned before. And even then, if you don't have 2012 R2 domain functional level or higher, you can still get some of the benefits by, again, promoting a domain controller that's 2012 R2 or higher to the primary domain controller emulator role, and you'll get some of the benefits. That would be the host level benefits. And then if you've done all that, you don't have you don't have any of these servers, there's still a chance that you may have the protected users group. If you downgraded some things, etc., remove some servers from the environment. Rare, but hey, it may still exist in your environment. You need to make sure that all of your admins have relatively recent passwords. And when I say relatively recent, I mean they need to be newer than when you upgraded from 2000 functional level or 2003 functional level to 2008 or higher. So when I say relatively new, I mean newer than probably 2009. That being said, if you have admin passwords that are older than a year, please change those today. So this is kind of the code that you need to do in order to find all of those, etc. And here we go. We've got, it's a bunch of stuff. You got to be digging into Event Viewer and pulling out a ton of stuff. And here we go. In this one environment, we have a bunch of users that are newer than the current UGT account. And this other one, we have some that are older. That's bad. Then we need to make sure that logon auditing is enabled in all PCs because we need to start checking to see whether these weak forms of authentication have been used. So we're going to make sure logon auditing is enabled, right? And then we're going to make sure the protected users logs are enabled. Not necessarily required for this part, but if you're enabling some logs, why not just do it all, right? All right, so you've got the ability to have the protected users group. You are now you've enabled all your logging. You need to start auditing NTLM and seeing if your AD admins are actually using NTLM. If they are, track that down, find out why it's being used, cut it off. For example, if they're doing vSphere and administering vSphere, you should have separate accounts for that administration, right? Separate the accounts as much as possible. Then we're going to do something similar, look through the event logs and try to find encryption levels that are not AES 128 or higher. So again, digging through the event logs, finding events. Here we see that I have logged in before with a weekly encrypted Kerberos login. And then audit for delegation. I still have not taken the time to dig into how to best identify delegation. TBD. Coming soon. And then, so you've done all that. You've checked your event logs and all your DCs for the last, as long as your event logs hold, right? You see no weak logons. It's time to go ahead and mark your accounts as sensitive so that way they cannot be delegated. At that point, this should be a pretty light touch. If your AD admins are not logging in weird places, marking accounts as sensitive should be relatively easy to do. You hang and you do that for a while, and then boom, you add one user to the protected users group. Just one. Not two, not three. You add one and you test. And you test and you test and you test and you test and you test. So eventually you get to a point where you know that you are able to add all of your user accounts into the protected users group. Yay, everybody's happy. But as you can tell, that took kind of a long time, a lot of manual work, a lot of pulling out of stuff out of event logs. So is there an easier way? Yes. And that's PowerPug. So I have spent the last 3-ish months, basically since I got accepted to speak here, I have developed big PowerPug. The ideas have been floating around for a long, long time, but nothing lights a fire under your butt until you actually have to present it somewhere. So PowerPug will prepare your environment. So make sure that you're up to the correct levels that are required. And if they're not, give you guidance on how to upgrade those functional levels and or DCOSs, etc. Make sure that all logging is enabled. Then start looking through those logs for those weak authentication methods, and also checking your AD admins to make sure that their passwords are relatively recent. Lastly, you will be able to tell immediately who some of those users are that haven't been using weak logons, that have recent passwords, etc. And get code snippets that will just allow you to add those users directly to the protected users group immediately. So let's see what it looks like. All right. Fortunately, unlike Daryl previously, hi Daryl, I hope you're watching. I do not have Wi-Fi issues, so this is fantastic. This is PowerPug running in a lab environment. It is a PowerShell module. It is available on the PowerShell gallery. If you do install module PowerPug today, you can get this and start using it immediately. As you can tell, I have already collected information from my forest here. So collect forest to make sure that it's the right level, collecting domain information, collecting domain controller information, collecting the logs off of all of the DCs. So you will need to be, a domain admin in a single domain forest, or an enterprise admin in a multi-domain forest in order to pull all those logs into a central location. Pulls all those logs and then compares all the collected user information against those logs to find which ones are ready to be added to the group. So let's see what it actually looks like. So this is a small, relatively new lab, Windows Server 2016. And as you can see, protected users group does exist in all the domains in the forest. All right. Next up, we can see that this main DC that I'm actually working on right now does not have logon auditing properly configured. Do I want to see a snippet on how to fix that? Sure, show me. So we now have this command here that you can literally just copy and paste, and boom, it'll connect to that server and enable logon auditing properly. The other DC in this environment already has logon auditing properly configured. So then it will show you which members are already in the protected users group. So Pug admin, not surprisingly, is already a member of the protected users group. And I tried to give a few notes here and there through every single check on why this is important. Very basic information. As time goes on, information will be built out more on specifics, but this is it for now. Unfortunately, these are the members that are, these are the AD admins that are not members of the protected user group. And as we can see, quite a few for such a small environment. There's actually too many AD admins for an environment of this size. Then here, I want the every AD admin's password, at the very least, to be newer than the creation of the protected users group. And you would really make me happy if all of your AD admins had passwords that have changed within the last year. So I'm just going to throw that in here. So we got a few here that, that have passwords that are older than a year, and a few that, and this single one here at the end that is older. It's been around forever, right? So it actually predates the creation of the protected users group. Then we could see users that have been using NTLM authentication. So JHDA, aka my domain admin account, has logged in with NTLM authentication recently, and therefore probably not a good candidate to be added to the protected users group. Thankfully, nobody in this little lab has used DES or RC4 encryption, which is good because it's crap. And here's another point. I've mentioned it a few times, but I really want to harp on this. Computer accounts and service accounts don't go in AD admin groups, the end. There's a very, very small subset of service accounts that are acceptable in AD admin groups. There are 0 computer accounts that are acceptable in AD admin groups. Either way, computer account or service account, adding it to the protected users group is going to break stuff. Don't do it. And then lastly, these two users here, administrator and JASDA, that is Jim Sakura. I'm not sure if you're out in the crowd, but if you are, hi Jim. Is DA. They've not logged in with NTLM authentication recently. They don't have, they've got a recently changed password. They have not used weaker reverse encryption methods. It's probably safe to add this user. So let's go ahead and get a code snippet for it. And boom. You can go ahead and add them immediately. And now, as mentioned before, add one user, please. Test for a little bit. Please do not throw your entire AD admin group into the protected users group, and then suddenly you've got to bust out your break glass account, because that's what's going to happen, right? Something is going to break in that time, and nobody wants to have to pull out the break glass account unless it's absolutely required. So just take your time. There's no rush. Okay, a little bit of a rush. Yeah. So that is what it looks like in a small and pretty homogeneous environment, right? This is what we see in a much larger, much more heterogeneous environment. So this is a lab that was built about a year ago by Jim Sakura, and is sort of what we test a lot of Traffic tools against, because it is broken. As you can tell, things are not available. PowerPug's just going to look past those for the time being. If your environment is so bad that you're getting problems like this from PowerPug, you probably need to reach out to Trimark, and we can help you out a little bit. But so yeah, collect from a bunch of DCs, right? We see, oh, logout enabling is not enabled here for this Desert Bus DC01. We've got remoting disabled on this one completely. We got some groups that don't exist, etc. And then here we can see, the forest functional level is server 2008 R2, which is lower than what is required to get full protection from the protected user group. So thankfully, you can get host level protections by promoting a relatively new domain controller to that primary domain controller emulator role. And then these are the various domain levels that we have, domain functional levels, right? And provide a little information on each one and what will happen if with each domain, what protections are available, etc. Thankfully, we only have one domain in the entire thing that is not able to support the protected user group at all, and that is merlin.lab.lan. Then we go through, and as I mentioned, domain controller OSs are also important. Microsoft sometimes does forced functional levels that are give new rights and privileges, new protections. Sometimes it's domain functional levels. Sometimes it's just the DCOS. So, yeah, promote in some of these environments. If you just promoted these domain controllers to the primary domain controller emulator role, you would gain some additional benefits. And again, get out of here, little updates guy. Let's see if it actually opens. I don't know. But yeah, we can, again, get code snippets. We don't want to see the code snippets. We've already seen those before. And we don't need to see that again. All right. Again, we see which members, which users are in the protected users group. Again, not shockingly, they're protected and named as such. This is the list of users that cannot, that are not currently a member. These red ones show, they cannot be added specifically. And these ones that have a password older than a year should have their password changed immediately. Please, just rotate your passwords, please. Strong ones, please. And then, as expected, my enterprise admin account and Jim's enterprise admin account in this lab both been logging on with NTLN recently because we RDP to things via IP address. In this one, we actually do have weak algorithms used for Kerberos because I figured out how to use Rubius, so that was pretty fun. And this one, again, computer account and a service account cannot be added to the protected users group. Things break. The end. And then we have a ton of users that have not actually ever had a weak login. They've never, they've got relatively recent passwords, et cetera, et cetera. So let's go ahead and look at what that code block is. You literally could copy and paste each of these and get that user added to the protected users group in their specific domain. This is that is PowerPug. So you can get it now, as I mentioned. You can go to my GitHub, github.com/trymarkjake/PowerPug, and pull it down today. Always looking for contributors to help out. This is probably the biggest project that I've ever taken on, and I have handled it all by myself, and it's really stressed me out. So having another set of eyes on it probably would help. And again, you can also do install -module PowerPug, all one word. That'll pull it down from the PowerShell gallery. It was first, the initial real release happened earlier today. You can also get it from the Trymark GitHub. If you go there, we've got a bunch of tools up that are available. And then if you just want to follow along with me at home, please do. This QR code goes directly to my link tree. I'm not tracking anything. I don't care about any of that. But there you can keep up with. I've got a blog on there. I've got links to my other open source tools for AD security, which would be Locksmith, which is ADCS related, and then Blue Tuxedo, which I worked with Jim Sikora on, which is about Active Directory integrated DNS. Both of those really work similarly to PowerPug in that we find a problem, we tell you how to fix it, right? I'm not a big fan of things that just find the problems for you. I want to reach out and tell everybody how to fix them. I feel that, any research, to throw out another John Strand quote, right? A research without a solution is just wizards impressing other wizards. So that's not what we're going for here. So, I want to thank all of you for coming out to this talk. I know that I've kind of, like I said, speed ran through this whole thing, but I am more than willing to, I'm open for questions, please, if there are questions.
When you find the user using NPLM, are you showing the logs or whatnot associated with that so you can track what that is?
I do capture the message. I just haven't output it to a log file or anything yet. So pretty easy. Yeah, just been trying to get the on-screen presentation to work great. But yeah, that's fairly simple.